They'll tell you Louisville is just bourbon, horse racing, and one Saturday every May. They're wrong, and they've been wrong for over 100 years. This city has quietly invented some of the most specific, most stolen, most imitated dishes in American history. A sandwich so famous it outlived its own hotel closing for 14 years. A pie so protected the family behind it has fought over it in actual courtrooms. And the exact reason chewing gum has flavor in the first place, traced back to a single pharmacy counter. 10 real inventions, real names, real dates, all sitting quietly in the shadow of the Kentucky Derby, barely getting any credit for it. Welcome to American Food Stories. This is where we dig into exactly where a dish came from and who actually made it first. No corporate trivia, no copy-paste facts. If that's your kind of thing, hit subscribe and tap the notification bell right now, because next episode we're doing this again in a completely different city, and you're not going to want to miss it. Let's get into Louisville. The Brown Hotel, downtown Louisville, 1926. Guests have been dancing all night at the hotel's ballroom parties, and by 2 in the morning, they're tired of the same order every kitchen in town serves late-night dancers, ham and eggs, over and over. Chef Fred Schmidt decides to give them something else entirely. He builds an open-faced sandwich, sliced turkey, crisp bacon, sliced tomato, all smothered in a rich Mornay cheese sauce and broiled under high heat until the top turns golden and blistered right at the table. He calls it the Hot Brown after the hotel itself. It becomes so popular so fast that within a year it's showing up on 95% of the hotel's food orders at every hour of the day, not just after midnight. The Brown Hotel actually closed its doors for 14 straight years, starting in 1971, but the Hot Brown never disappeared with it. Other kitchens across the city kept making it, kept the recipe alive, passed it down, until the hotel finally reopened in 1985 and reclaimed the dish it started 60 years earlier. The Pendennis Club, Louisville, sometime in the 1880s. This private club is where Kentucky's elite come to drink, smoke cigars, and quietly conduct business deals, and legend credits a bartender there working under a member named Colonel James E. Pepper with a drink built around just 4 ingredients: bourbon, sugar, water, and bitters, stirred slowly over ice with an orange twist for garnish. Other cities have tried to claim they invented it first, and the argument over the true origin of the old-fashioned has genuinely never fully settled to this day, with historians on both sides still publishing competing timelines. But Louisville didn't wait around for the debate to end. In 2015, the city officially declared it Louisville's own cocktail, and the Pendennis Club still serves it today, made exactly the way the legend says it started nearly a century and a half ago.
Prospect, Kentucky, just outside Louisville, 1954. The Kern family runs the Melrose Inn, and they're testing a new dessert in the kitchen, a gooey, half-baked chocolate and walnut pie with a texture landing somewhere between a brownie and a custard, rich enough that a small slice feels like a full dessert on its own. It becomes an instant regional obsession almost overnight, especially every spring during Derby season when the whole state seems to be eating it at the exact same time. The Kern family trademarks the name Derby pie almost immediately, and they've spent decades defending that trademark in actual courtrooms, suing bakeries, cookbooks, and even national magazines for printing the name without permission. If you order the real thing today, it still comes from the same family recipe 70 years later, completely unchanged down to the exact ratio of chocolate to walnuts. Louisville, 1883. A candy maker is watching a traveling stage production starring a Polish actress named Helena Modjeska, who has just made a celebrated American debut to a packed house. He's so taken by her performance that he goes straight back to his shop afterward and creates a candy in her honor that same season, a soft caramel wrapped tightly around a fluffy marshmallow center. He names it the Modjeska. It's still made by hand in a handful of Louisville candy shops today, using the same slow caramel process from over 140 years ago, and outside Kentucky almost nobody has ever heard of it, let alone actually tasted one. Also, the Pendennis Club, decades after the old-fashioned first appeared behind its bar. Members want a sauce to go with their steaks, something sharper and more layered than plain ketchup or the standard bottled steak sauce of the era. What comes out of the club kitchen is a dark, tangy blend of tomato, vinegar, tamarind, soy sauce, and pickled walnuts, thick enough to cling heavily to a cut of beef without running off the plate. It becomes known as Henry Bain's sauce, named after the club's black headwaiter, who is widely credited with actually creating the recipe behind the scenes. It's still bottled and sold across Kentucky grocery stores today, one of the only steak sauces in America with a documented individual credited by name instead of a faceless corporation. Louisville, the early 1900s, a restaurateur and cookbook author named Jenny Carter Benedict is running her own catering business at a time when very few women held that kind of public role in the city's food scene. She blends softened cream cheese with grated cucumber and a hint of grated onion into a pale green spread, tints it slightly for presentation, and serves it in delicate, crustless tea sandwiches at her catered events across the city. It becomes Benedictine, a dish that stayed almost entirely regional for well over a century now, still served at Louisville lunches, bridal showers, and derby parties made exactly the way she first put it together. Ruth Boo Candy Company, 1938. Ruth Boo, one of the company's founders, is experimenting with ways to work bourbon into candy, no small idea during an era when combining hard liquor and confection wasn't the obvious pairing it seems today. She lands on a small round truffle packed with chopped pecans, wafer crumbs, and butter, dipped entirely in dark chocolate, with just enough bourbon worked into the center that you can genuinely taste it in the first bite. The bourbon ball becomes a holiday season staple across the entire American South almost immediately, and it's still produced today using her original recipe, largely untouched since the 1930s, right down to the candy shop that first made it. Impellizzeri's Pizza Parlor, Louisville, late 1970s. Most pizza places at the time are still doing one layer of sauce, one layer of toppings, one layer of cheese, the standard everywhere. Impellizzeri's decides to do it twice instead, sauce, cheese, and toppings, then a full second layer of cheese and toppings stacked directly on top before the whole thing goes into the oven together. It becomes known as Louisville-style pizza, noticeably heavier and denser than anything else being made regionally at the time. And Impellizzeri's still builds it exactly the same way, decades later, to lines that form outside before the doors even open. Louisville, the 19th century. A local pharmacist named John Colgan is experimenting behind his own counter, trying to solve a problem nobody had really cracked yet: how to make chewing gum that actually tastes like something, instead of the plain, flavorless tree resin most gum was made from at the time. He creates Colgan's Taffy Tolu, widely credited today as the first flavored chewing gum in American history. He brings a batch to the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, where a young traveling salesman named William Wrigley Jr. sees it, takes careful note, and builds an entire gum empire on that same idea not long after. Colgan never built the empire himself, and his name faded out of the story almost entirely, while Wrigley's grew into one of the most recognized brands on the planet. But every piece of flavored gum chewed anywhere in the world today, in any country, in any flavor, traces its lineage back to a pharmacist's counter in Louisville, Kentucky. And we close with something that never had a single named inventor or a precise date, but has no shortage of Kentucky pride behind it anyway: rolled oysters. Raw oysters dipped in an egg and cornmeal batter, rolled tight in cracker crumbs, and deep-fried until the outside cracks sharply and the inside stays soft and briny underneath. It's a dish almost nobody outside Louisville has ever even heard of, still served in old-school fish houses and taverns that have been making it the exact same way for generations, no explanation needed for the locals who grew up eating them at the counter. 10 foods invented in one city that most people assume is only about bourbon and horses for one weekend every May, then forgotten again until the next spring rolls back around. A chef solving a 2 a.m. hunger problem,
a pharmacist solving a flavorless gum problem decades before anyone else even thought to try, a family protecting a single pie recipe in actual courtrooms for over half a century. Louisville didn't build any of this to become famous outside Kentucky. Most of it stayed almost entirely local on purpose, made by the same families using the same recipes generation after generation, without ever chasing a national audience or a viral moment. And that's exactly why nearly all of it survived completely unchanged. If this is the kind of food history you didn't know you needed, subscribe to American Food Stories so you catch the next city the moment it drops. Tell me in the comments which dish on this list surprised you the most. I'm betting on the chewing gum. Stay curious.